AI's economic impact is starting to show in maybe everything from central bank policy to corporate restructuring. So, a few kind of interwoven stories here. The Fed just cut interest rates for the first time since 2024, citing growing uncertainty around unemployment and inflation. And meanwhile, AI driven disruption is ramping up across industries. We had a story this past week from Fiverr, whose CEO we've talked about in the past, that they laid off 30% of their workforce to become what they call an AI first company. They're streamlining management and restructuring around leaner, faster teams. In some other news, Zoom's CEO predicted that we're going to shift to a 3-day work week because AI will soon make 5 days of work unnecessary. At the same time, Anthropic's latest economic index says that AI capabilities are poised to transform productivity, but adoption right now is uneven. It's often clustered by income and geography. DeepMind released a virtual agent economies paper, which envisions an ecosystem where autonomous AIs create value with minimal human input. And on top of it all, 40 top economists are calling on the Labor Department in the US to track AI's effect on jobs in real time. Now, Paul, I'm going to turn this over to you here because you dedicated quite a bit of space and thought in your weekly Exec AI Insider newsletter from SmarterX to unpacking all these different signals we're seeing right now. Like, what dots are you connecting here that we should be paying attention to as business leaders and professionals?
It was interesting. So the background here, if people aren't familiar with kind of our process, so throughout the week, we keep a sandbox of links and resources, research papers, articles, tweets, anything that we could potentially talk about on the show. And then I go through usually I try to do it on Fridays. It never works. So usually on Saturday mornings, I wake up like 6:30, 7 a.m. and I write the newsletter. So it usually takes about 2 hours. Mike, thanks to Mike, he gets it ready to go and sends it for us. And so at about 8:30 on Saturday morning, I messaged Mike. I was like, "This is not going to be ready at 9 o'clock. Like, I'm sorry." So what happened was we had close to 50 links in this week's sandbox. And as I'm going through Saturday morning to figure out what the editorial is going to be, so I always lead off with an editorial. I don't know, it's usually like 500 words or something like that. And then I just do a kind of a preview of some of usually it's about 5 to 7 topics that we're going to talk about on the podcast this week. And so as I was going through these 50 or so links, I just saw this trend jumps out on the page of AI and the economy, because a bunch of these were all related to it. And it was across everything. It was, as you were outlining, Mike, it was job stuff. It was interest rates that they weren't saying AI, but that was kind of the undertone of what was going on there. It was research papers. It was, I don't know, it was just like this crazy collection of everything. You're like, all of this happened in like a 7-day span. Like something is going on bigger here from an economic perspective. And so that's what I ended up writing the editorial about. It just took way longer than normal to write it. So I think I finally got Mike the newsletter like 10 a.m. or something like that. So I'm just going to kind of wander through these a little bit and maybe add a little context as we're going, because it's even hard, honestly, to figure out the full story here yet. But what I think everyone will realize is we are entering this definite trend where there's way more conversation about AI's impact on the economy. So Mike, you led off with the Fiverr thing. So Fiverr, if you're not familiar, they operate a self-service digital marketplace where freelancers can connect with businesses or individuals requiring digital services like graphic design, editing, and programming. So they sort of have an inside track on kind of what people are hiring people for. So the quote from I think this was the CEO, "We are launching a transformation for Fiverr to turn Fiverr into an AI-first company that's leaner, faster, with a modern AI-focused tech infrastructure, a smaller team, each with substantially greater productivity and far fewer management layers." So that was in a letter to employees that was shared. And then they commented and they didn't deny this at all. It was like, yes, we are getting smaller. AI first in their world means fewer people, prioritizing tech over people, which is what I've always said. It's like, there's nothing wrong with the AI first movement at all. But the implications are it's tech over people. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So even things like this could end up giving that perception to AI first if it wasn't already there. So Google DeepMind, this was a dense one. This was a Notebook LM research paper for me, for sure. So virtual agent economies was the name of this paper. So again, like if you're really into this stuff, go read these things individually. If you just want a little bit better, drop them into Notebook LM and just ask for kind of like simpler summaries, because some of these get kind of dense. But so this paper starts off with current technological trajectories could potentially lead to a global economy in which autonomous AI agents interact with one another to generate economic value independently of human labor. The paper concludes, certain domains may always require active human decision making for a variety of reasons, for example, human preference, culture, risk sensitivity, etc. However, the rapid increase in AI agent performance, coupled with the development of scalable AI safety oversight frameworks and guardrails, is likely to result in an increasing number of use cases for autonomous agents. Autonomous or semi-autonomous AI agents may potentially be able to achieve more faster, adding substantial value to society. This will not come without significant challenges, requiring alignment and coordination not only of individual agents, but perhaps more importantly, the alignment and coordination of agent networks across various scales. Okay, I'm gonna pause on this one, Mike, because we'll get into the next one in a second. But there's a couple of things going on here. So one is the labs themselves see a near future where autonomy becomes far more reliable. So right now, AI agents we have today aren't always super reliable. We've talked about, like with Agent 3 recently, we talked about like the runtime and how they can, most of that is related to coding and software development, basically. So this isn't like out into the real world of all the other industries doing legal work and marketing work and sales work and customer success work, things like that. But what they're seeing is the increased capabilities on coding that they're then translating to say, okay, this is going to be a problem. Like as these agents become more reliable. And the other thing it's addressing right up front is these agents interacting with each other. So it's no longer like human sending its agent to go do something, agent does the thing, comes back, and the human's like super involved. It's human maybe tells the agent, here's what I want to achieve, here's what I want the outcome to be, here's what I want to purchase, whatever. And then the agent goes and does something, but it starts interacting with the brand's agents, and the humans just like get extracted from the loop, except the very beginning and very end. And this can be in commerce, it can be information consumption, it can be anything. And so this is very transformative and also potentially very disruptive. And so I think what we're starting to see, the reason all these articles we're kind of talking about, research reports we're talking about are coming at the same time, is all the labs are seeing the same trajectory of agentic capabilities. And they're now investing the resources to figure out what does this all mean. So Mike, before I move on to the next one, any thoughts from you on those so far?
I was going to ask you about that because my distinct impression, which I was going to mention, is, look, maybe I'm just superstitious, but all these stories coming at the same time just really made me feel like, what do they know that I don't know? Or what conversations have been had behind closed doors? It does feel like this is in response to something. And so the agentic piece of it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that's why even like the subject line for the newsletter, I was trying to think like what would I even say here, and honestly, like I just went with the AI economy, because that was what started jumping out to me, is like that's what this is. Like we're now seeing the development of this entirely AI powered, like I used to talk about years ago, I would say AI was eventually going to be the operating system of society and business, and I feel like that's what's actually starting to happen, is like it really is just everything operates on top of the AI layer. So the next one was, and this was an article from The Information. It said how Anthropic and OpenAI are developing AI coworkers. This is a good read for people. The Information we often cite as a source. I want to say it's like $300 a year for a subscription to The Information. If you love this stuff, it's a great $300 to spend. They have incredible articles and sources. So this one becomes more tangible. I found this one really intriguing. So it said, the AI models are being taught how to use everything from Salesforce customer relationship software to Zendesk's customer support and Cerner's health records app. The idea is to teach AI how to handle some of the complicated tasks white-collar workers do. This training isn't like anything AI models have done before. Researchers give the AI fake versions of apps to play around with and hire specialists in various subjects to show the models how to use the apps. Such techniques aren't cheap. Anthropic leaders, for instance, have privately discussed spending $1 billion over the next year on these cloned enterprise apps, otherwise known as reinforcement learning environments or GYMs. OpenAI plans to spend around $1 billion this year in data-related costs. which includes paying for human experts and reinforcement learning, or RL gyms, rising to $8 billion in 2030. One reason for the cost increase is the cost of hiring human experts. So they cited a company called Labelbox, one of a half dozen prominent firms that provide experts to AI developers like OpenAI. So these are people that are the companies that hire experts in different industries to train the models to do the jobs of the people in those industries. So again, zoom out. People who don't think that these labs and these VC-funded startups want to replace humans, you're completely missing what's happening. They absolutely intend for them to do that. And the way you do that is you train them to use the software we all use and to have the domain expertise we all have. And so the cost of that, so they're literally hiring like mathematicians and consultants and doctors and like to train these models to do what they do in the software that they do it in. So Turing, a firm that helps companies such as Google and Anthropic improve their models, says that it has built more than 1,000 RL gyms, including copies of Airbnb, Zendesk, and Microsoft Excel. In the recent months, Turing's rivals, including Scale, Surge, Mercer, which stick with that name for a minute, we're going to come back to that one, and Invisible Technologies have also begun to offer RL environment services, including providing human experts who come up with tasks to run in these apps. And then the last piece I'll say here is as the AI models have gotten better, data labeling firms have gone through hiring students, pursuing master's degrees and doctorates, to working with professionals with multiple years of experience in niche fields where they're actually doing complete real world tasks using specific applications. So if you weren't aware this was happening, here you go. Now, if you want to know how significant this is and how it's shifting the economy, Mercer, one of the companies I just mentioned that does this, their CEO, Brendan Foodie, tweeted an article last week called "The Economy Will Become an RL Environment Machine," reinforcement learning, the gyms, basically, so building on this concept. He also tweeted, Mercer scaled from 1 million to 500 million revenue run rate in the last 17 months, according to him, quote, making it the fastest growing company of all time. Mercer is an AI-powered talent acquisition platform that automates the hiring process by matching candidates with job opportunities, facilitating recruitment for companies. One trend, he says, is driving the meteoric growth is the economy becoming this RL environment machine. He says reinforcement learning is becoming so effective that agents can hill climb any benchmark, meaning pursue any benchmark, but humans need to define the rewards to automate everything. While everyone fears job loss, we're creating a new category of knowledge work faster than any time in history. The future of work will converge on training agents. We're paying out over, this is still quoting him, we're paying out over 1 million per day to people in our marketplace and hiring experts rapidly across nearly every domain, software engineers, doctors, lawyers, consultants, bankers, and many more, meaning $1 million per day for people like you and me to train models to do what we do. So again, Mike, I'll pause there for a second. We've been explaining this for years, that this is where this was going. We now actually see the data, and it's just, this wasn't intentional. It's like, again, connecting the dots as you go throughout the resources of the week. You're like, oh, wait a second. The information says this. Oh, I had tagged this tweet from this guy from Mercer. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's all happening. Like you're seeing the pieces come together.
Yeah, I think it was maybe easier before to ignore this trend as you're kind of really getting your hands dirty with AI and saying, okay, like some features aren't there yet, or some tools aren't as advanced as people would want to admit or want to sell you on. This could not be more clear now. You really, I just would implore anybody listening, if you haven't really taken a close look at the writing on the wall just yet, this is your wake-up call to do so. You're probably still far ahead of the curve, but this is going to be the story, I feel like, in the next several years.
Yeah, and I like this idea of the economy will become an RL environment machine. I get that. Like everybody in every field, people are going to be willing to pay for expertise to train the models. But what happens when they've been trained?
Right.
Like what happens when they're genius level at your job, and then what do you do? So I think there's going to be a window where people are going to be able to make a ton of money. It's almost like the Uber economy for AI.
Yeah.
Like it'll exist for a while until the autonomous vehicles take the role of the people driving the cars. And that's basically what this is. You're going to have this window where there's like tons of money is going to be made. Companies are going to be built on this. People's careers may be this. You may be an AI trainer for the next 5 to 7 years. And like make great money. Maybe you can make a couple $100,000 a year just training AI in these models. Then what? Like that's
Right.
that's my big thing, which then leads us to what will AI look like in 2030? So this is an Epoch AI report. It's 119 pages, another great Notebook LM use case. This one was commissioned by Google DeepMind. So it provides a comprehensive forecast of AI development by 2030. So it basically looks at the scaling laws and say, okay, are they going to continue? And if so, what does that mean? The report argues that the exponential growth in training and inference compute, which again is when you and I use the models, will continue requiring investments potentially reaching hundreds of billions of dollars, which is what we've talked about. The training of these models is going to cost billions or hundreds of billions of dollars. The byproduct of these investments could be a significant increase in net productivity and GDP across the economy worth trillions of dollars. That then led to the other one from last week, the Anthropic Economic Index, Understanding AI's Effect on the Economy. This is a 48-page report. As we've talked about before, I think this is the third edition of their report. Claude is dominantly used for coding. So you always have to look at their uses and understand that their user base is heavy coding. So they don't have the totality of coverage across the world of diversity of use cases, but we'll actually get into that in OpenAI's research report in the second main topic. So in the Anthropic one, they said existing capabilities of Claude and other frontier AI systems are already poised to transform economic activity, given how broadly applicable the technology is. Rapidly advancing AI capabilities only reinforce the conclusion that immense change is on the horizon, and yet early AI adoption is strikingly uneven. Usage currently clusters in small sets of tasks with strong geographic variation that is highly correlated with income. So this gets into some much larger societal issues. People with money, people in privileged areas are the ones that are benefiting most. And this is the first study that breaks this into like regions. They say AI is being used to fully or directively automate more and more tasks over time. In just 9 months, we saw directive automation jump from 27% to 39% of all conversations. For enterprise customers, that figure is 77%. So this is a really important distinction. They say users are entrusting Claude with more autonomy. Directive, quote unquote, conversations where users delegate complete tasks to Claude jumped from 27% to 39%. That's 12 basis points, which is, I don't know, quick math, 40%-ish or whatever increase, not insignificant. So again, the difference between 27% and 39% isn't 12%. It's 12 percentage points, which is much closer to like 40%. So there's a major jump in a very short time where people are actually relying on these things to do the work for them. So they then break everything into automation versus augmentation. And so I kind of like where they're going here. Again, their data is somewhat limited because it's predominant coding, but I like the direction and I like the fact that they're really committed to these economic impact studies. And then that leads to, Mike, which you had highlighted, the leading economists, so 40 of them signing a letter calling for the Department of Labor data on AI's impact on jobs. Good luck. Like the current administration is hiding every relevant piece of data that would show any of this. So this is great that the leading economists are calling for this. They're not going to get it. Like any indication. So this is where we have to rely on these like private companies and third parties to do the research. The US government is not going to tell you if they're seeing trendline data that says AI is going to take jobs. It's not coming from this administration. So again, regardless of political views, if you're new to the podcast, we keep this as middle of the line as humanly possible. I don't care who is in office, which side is in office. All we're going to talk about is the implications on AI. And I'm going to tell you right now, this administration is not going to tell you if they see an impact of AI on jobs. So you have to look at the third-party studies to see what's actually going on. All right, I will stop there because I know we're going to kind of work into the OpenAI one, but you make the call, Mike, if there's anything else you want to talk about on this one before we go to OpenAI.
No, that was an awesome connecting the dots here. I think it's super valuable. Just one kind of final point here, and I don't want to be too down in the dumps, but I think you have to, as a professional kind of in charge of your own journey and your own success, like I do think I applaud very much the companies putting out more research. This is all needed. But like you kind of have to sit back and realize whether it's the government or the companies building this stuff, like nobody is coming to save you on this issue. And I realize that can be really depressing in some ways, but I also think the sooner we kind of get to that as individuals trying to kind of make our way in the world and navigate this stuff, I think the sooner you get to that idea, the more you can at least start empowering yourself using these tools, using the research out there, the education being put out by us, by plenty of others, to kind of chart a path forward. Because if you think, to your point about the administration, if you think the data is coming, the policies are coming to fix this or to address this fast enough, I think that's deeply unlikely.
Yeah, and I do think, when I look at this over time, I just see a very extended runway for people who are highly competent with AI tools and have domain expertise.
Yes.
Like I just feel like the diffusion of this technology is still going to take years, no matter how advanced the tech gets, no matter how good these models get. People who work in corporations know nothing happens fast. Nothing happens overnight. So there are some companies that are going to be disrupted very quickly, but a lot in like the tech space and stuff like that. Like disruption is coming, but you becoming AI literate, you being highly competent in using these tools, being the one in your company that can apply it, you have a wonderful runway ahead of you.
Yes.
And to be more valuable in your company. So yeah, and I think like over time, maybe we do figure it out, and maybe the cliff doesn't happen as fast as sometimes we think it might. And maybe new jobs do emerge, and like maybe we solve all of this, but sitting on the sidelines and waiting is not the answer. You will get disrupted as a company or as an individual. So your best chance is just stay on the forefront of this stuff and like connect the dots before everybody else. And I feel like that's always been true in business. The more proactive you are, the more intrinsically motivated you are, the more knowledge you have, the more power you have, and the more leverage you have in your own career. And I feel like that's going to continue to be true. So yeah, like that lens of kind of hope and optimism around this,
Yes.
while also being realistic that we're running out of time to get started if you're not started yet. Or
Yeah,
your
it's
peers,
extremely
family,
exciting.
friends.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like roughly I kind of in my head, I'm just like, there's a golden opportunity decade at least right now with this stuff doing everything you just said, despite, my how starkly I frame this. I think there's a huge upside. I'm excited.